Welcome back. Let us continue with the second lecture of this first module. In the previous discussion, we talked about defining organizational behavior and functions of a manager, roles of a manager and skills of a manager. Today in this section, we will talk about the opportunities in the field of OB. That means application of OB, where we understand how an individual will respond to different kind of situations, right, and other will be in terms of contribution of different branches of psychology to organizational behavior. So, what are the opportunities in the field of OB, where OB comes into the play? Any organization or any employee confronts different kind of situations. It is uncertainty, it can be any financial crisis, it can be about any interpersonal relationship issues, and most importantly globalization or intense competition, the cutthroat competition that exists in the present scenario. Then how OB plays a major or very important role, crucial role to handle all these kind of problems. So, organizations witness dramatic changes in your organizations or at global level. It is not only one organization that exists at global level. One kind of organization is there, but competition is with the other organizations at the same time. Be it any automobile industry, be it any banking sector, be it any manufacturing industry, there is intense competition. One product has been launched, the other organization will launch the same product with some different features or improvements. So, this leads to some kind of crucial competition that makes an organization so important to work extensively just to survive. So, opportunities that include in the field of OB are in form of getting older. When employees become older, more women and people of color in the workplace come into foreplay. There is more corporate downsizing and there is heavy use of temporary workers. These are the different kind of situations that any organization will tend to experience, and how OB will help assist managers and organizations to resolve such kind of situations. So, the globalization has brought to the forefront the challenges of working with and managing people during uncertain times, and in short, today's challenges bring opportunities to managers to use OB concepts. Under what situations? Responding to economic pressures. Just as I said, if there is any financial crisis in any organization, how organization will respond? So, during the difficult economic times, effective management is often at a premium. So, the difference between good and bad management has to be identified, that what it led the organization to encounter any economic pressure or financial crisis. Definitely management was poor, and how to make it better and how to improve, that comes into the play of any OB, where they identify the deep root causes of the failure and how corrective actions can be taken to overcome such kind of pressures or crisis. So, the application of OB approach sometimes differs, but understanding how to reward, satisfy and retain employees is at a premium in good times. So, even bad times have been identified by OB professionals, then good times are also being identified by the OB professionals in terms of reward system, in terms of retaining the employees. So, while in bad times, issues like stress, decision making and coping also come to the fore. Now, in gist, it can be stated that whenever there is some kind of crisis that is being faced by any organization, OB professionals will come into the forefront, where they will identify the root causes, what are the pressing issues that has led the organization to move in a regressing situation and how it can go up. So, crisis that exist in any form can be handled with the application of OB. The other is responding to globalization. The world has become a global village. In this process, effective managers play a crucial role in anticipating and adapting approaches to global issues in myriad of ways. For example, increased foreign assignments. How to compete with the global competition? Globalization is there, which means competition is there. That is why it is globalization. So, how to compete at international level also, there comes hiring employees so that employees can operate to at international level, and that requires creation of any international division. Who will create it? It is only through OB, application of organizational behavior, who will understand the requirement of international assignments, what kind of HR resources will be required to assign those roles to particular managers or employees, and what approach has to be there where different needs and aspirations of the organization and employee can be streamlined, in terms that any employee who is fit for any international assignment, the solution is there, but to what extent the employee is also ready to take up that assignment. To create that perfect fit, there comes an important role of OB, that is the application of OB in increased foreign assignments. Managing workforce diversity. It is about equality, it is about inclusiveness. This is a recent inclusion or focus of OB in terms of workplace diversity by addressing people with different color, caste, creed, races and ethnics within given countries and at international level. More policies are being formulated to make the whole hiring process more inclusive. Even people with disabilities are being given emphasis to be hired, to be recruited in a particular organization based on their competencies or skills. So, this is based on not only differences among people within given countries, it can be about between two countries, it can be based on culture differences, it can be based on color, it can be based on region, it can be based on psychological disabilities or any physical disability, it can be about racial and ethnic groups. But the idea is that OB, organizational behavior, is playing an important role in managing workplace diversity. More technology is being inducted in the hiring process where women with different race, culture differences are being incorporated or inducted in the organizations while maintaining equality among men and women. This is the most important application of OB in managing workforce diversity. The other is helping employees balance work-life conflicts. It is not about work-life balance, it is about work-life conflict. The field of OB offers a number of suggestions to guide managers in designing workplaces that can help employees deal with work-life conflicts. This fosters balancing work and life demands which suppress a job security as an employee priority, thus attaining balance between personal life and work as a primary career goal, and employees want a life as well as a job. Balance is there, they want both, they want life as well as a job, and when there is a conflict between life and job, they want to create a fit. Now, how that fit can be created? It can be in form of work from home, it can also be in form of flexible schedules, or it can be about flexi time. But ultimately, there is a fit between an individual's life and the job. On the contrary, organizations do not help their people achieve work-life balance will find increasingly difficult to attract and retain the most capable and motivated employees. When there is a fit between the work and life, then more talent can be retained because there is more flexibility in the system, in the structure of the organization, and that will motivate employees to continue the membership of the group or that organization. So, this is all about organizational behavior where they play an important role to maintain that balance and reduce that conflict. Improving customer service, training employees while not saying no to the customer. There are service oriented firms, service oriented organizations, for example, any IT firm. They are offering IT services to different organizations and to the public, to different people in form of apps as well. They are offering services beyond imagination of the customer, and ultimately the objective is that we are at your service. So, these organizations aim to offer services and retain the customers. This is about improving customer service. The manager's most important general responsibility is to serve the customer and retain the customer. So, the word no does not exist and empowers staff to use their best judgment in all customer service matters. No matter what is the situation, the manager makes it a point not to lose its customer. Even a small example can be when any OTT app has been launched, how customer service comes into action by giving an advertisement call to every OTT customer. They have the data and they try to touch every customer just to market their own particular app. This is about customer services or retaining the customers or attracting more customer towards their product. So, OB can help managers achieve this goal and more generally can contribute to improving an organization's performance by showing managers how employees' attitudes and behavior are associated with customer satisfaction. So, they foster a culture, OB professionals tend to foster a culture where the culture is customer responsive and they provide considerable guidance in helping managers create such culture in which employees are friendly and courteous, accessible, knowledgeable, prompt in responding to customer needs and willing to do what is necessary to please the customer. 100 of OTT apps are there and 100 of customer care centers are there. They tend to approach every customer of every OTT with more different plans with the idea that more service is there, less money is there and more flexibility is there. There is more flexibility to change the OTT plan. So, these kind of activities can only be provided by the OB professionals where they give a particular training how to retain the customer. The other is creating a positive work environment. It is all about human strength. It is all about the vitality that employees need to retain to perform the job. Now, here vitality is not about physical energy, it is about psychological energy, the psychological strength that they have in terms of resilience, in terms of flourishment, in terms of meaning, in terms of capital. They are more hopeful for a better future prospects within the same organization, they are more optimistic about their job, they are more efficient to perform a particular job and the more resilient to perform the job even after setbacks. So, this is about creating a positive work environment. In this time of turmoil and cynicism about business, you need to be passionate, positive leaders. So, when you are more passionate about your job, definitely you are more resilient. The more problems you experience, the more you resilient become. This is about a positive work environment. So, organizational behavior has its scope to create or modify the work environment to be a positive environment. So, this underscores the fact that despite the increasingly competitive pressures on most organizations, some are choosing to gain a competitive advantage by fostering a positive work environment. Maybe the company is not paying well to his or her employees, but the environment is very positive. So, it can be a factor that the company or organization can retain the employees, but depending on an individual's choice. So, the real growth in OB is in the field of positive organizational scholarship or positive organizational behavior, where they talk about the psychological strength, vitality and how the potential can be unlocked. OB research and management practice also attempts to identify what is wrong with the organization and their employees, and in response employees understand what is good about them. Now, here till now what was happening? Coming to the root cause of the problem and what damage has been done to the organization. Now, OB has shifted its application in a positive form that any damage that has been done to the organization is not the focus. The focus is what we are left with, how much good has occurred within the organization and who is responsible for contributing even for a small portion of goodness within that organization. So, it is about appreciating what positive that exists within the crisis and how we can use that positive aspect to improve or come out of that crisis. So, this is the application of positive work environment in form of positive organizational behavior or positive organizational scholarship. Now, what is the outcome of this kind of application? So, there is more engagement, there is more hope, there is more optimism, there is more resilience. When organizations, when managers are focusing on the positive and not focusing on the negative, then managers are also become more resilient, that we can bounce back, regain, resume and then perform again. So, this is not only about best self and personal best, it is about understanding and exploiting one's own strength, that even in the crisis I have this strength to handle this kind of crisis. Maybe some portion is left unsatisfied, but the portion that I have completed has some positive impact on the organization. Therefore, OB through a new lens pushes organizations to exploit employee strength rather than dwell on their limitation. That is what I said, that it is an individual's choice to what extent the person is more focusing on the positive work environment rather than salary, or vice versa. So, this is all the application of OB. The other is ethical behavior, which is again a hot spot in organizational behavior, where it has become pertinent and very important and significant to understand the concept of right and wrong, ethical and unethical. We are living in a globalized world. It is not only my world or your world, it is about our world, and how the world will move on the notions of right and wrong. So, this calls for spreading awareness among employees about ethical issues. It is about publishing and disseminating codes of conduct and ethics to the employees, training them, upgrading them about the new rules and regulations that pop up, that are being disseminated by the government itself in terms of production, in terms of finances, and how it can be handled in a very appropriate manner. So, this tries to improve the ethical behavior of the employees in any particular organization. Organizations also provide in-house training, or they provide in-house advisors to handle any dilemma, and how they can protect the mechanism of right and wrong. They can protect the employees from facing any ethical crisis, and ultimately preventing organizations' image from being tarnished. Thus, OB plays an important role in creating an ethical, healthy climate for the employees, with minimal ambiguity about right and wrong, and there is more clarity about ethicality. It fosters strong ethical mission, encourages employees to behave with integrity. Here integrity means being moral, and provide strong ethical leadership that can influence employee decisions and behave ethically, right. Next comes disciplines that contribute to the field of OB, that is different branches of psychology that has contributed to OB. It is about general psychology, where they have talked about learning, motivation, emotions, perceptions, training, leadership, job satisfaction, decision making, performance appraisal, attitude measurement, employee selection, work design, and work stress. It is about learning about reward and punishment. The more you perform better, the more you are being rewarded. The more you are not performing, maybe you are not getting the annual bonus. It is about motivation, the rewards, how much input you have made will be equal to your output. That is the motivation that will motivate you perform more on your job. It is about personality, finding the best fit between your job and the person, or between the person and the organization. Best person job fit, best person organization fit. It is about emotions, where it talks about your ability to understand and manage one's own emotions and other person's emotions. It is about training on the job and off the job training. You are working with mentors, there is crowdsourcing, where people come forward to help or assist the other new entrants, and how they become well acquainted with the organizational norms and rules. The other is leadership effectiveness, finding the best leader for a particular objective or organizational goal, and how the leader will direct the team or the group in the right direction, and to what extent it is effective in terms of motivation, effective in terms of performance. Job satisfaction, individual decision making, performance appraisal, that is to what extent performance of every individual is being appraised or measured. It is attitude measurement in terms of training, in terms of perception. It is about employee selection in terms of hiring and selection. It is about work design and work stress. Work design here means designing a job based on individuals' knowledge, skills, and abilities, and to what extent it is motivating employees to perform more. that is about task identity, task significance. To what extent the person relates his knowledge with the task, and to what extent the person can identify his performance as significant to the organization. And work stress, that what are the root causes of an individual stress and how it can be diminished. The other is social psychology, the behavioral changes and the attitude changes through training or modification programs, where a person is being exposed to different simulated situations and they learn how to control their behavior or how to lead themselves in a particular crucial situation. It is about communication, where employees tend to appraise themselves with different communication patterns in terms of upward, downward communication. It is about group process, how groups are being formed, how the leadership role is decided or designated to any particular employee, how conflicts are resolved, how negotiation takes place based on arbitration. It can be about how, when members become more cohesive, then how people will be able to take the right decision. So, this is the group process and group decision making in terms of technique that has been adopted in appropriate decision making. The other is sociology. It is about formal organization theory, it is about structure, it is about that which kind of theoretical assumption is more applicable for a particular organization to function effectively. It is about changes to be brought in and how people are being trained to adopt those changes to function effectively, and organizational structure, that is power. What kind of culture it has, individualistic or collectivist. For example, Indian organizations are labeled as collectivist cultures, whereas organizations in Western countries, they are labeled as individualistic cultures. So, how to identify those cultures and then implementing any particular strategy. It is about anthropology, where cross cultural analysis can be there. What kind of values does exist in any organization and how we can compare it with other organizations to grow. It can be about comparative values, it is about comparative attitudes, it is about culture, environment and power. But the idea is, based on this pictorial representation, is that no doubt different branches of psychology has contributed to evolve OB, but ultimately these disciplines are not only working at organizational level, all these disciplines are working at individual, group level and organizational level, and that helps them to survive in stiff competition. So, here individual level is the micro level, group level is the meso level and organization system is the macro level. So, what we started with, that how OB functions or can be divided into three categories, is coming down to these functions itself. So, this is the application of different branches of psychology to evolve another discipline, that is organizational behavior. Without understanding of these concepts, understanding OB becomes difficult, right. So, I will just talk about different aspects that we cover in every branch, that is psychology. It is about problems related to fatigue, boredom and other working conditions that could impede efficient work performances. It will talk about the contribution including learning, perception, personality, emotions, training, leadership, effectiveness, decision making, performance appraisal, attitude measurement, employee selection, designs and job stress. Social psychology will deal to contribute to measuring, understanding and changing attitudes, identifying the communication patterns and barriers. For example, it can be about interpersonal relationship or communication, building trust, and finally, they have important contribution to the study of group behavior, power and conflict. It is about sociology, it is the study of group behavior in organizations, particularly formal and complex organizations. Perhaps most important, sociologists have studied organizational culture, formal organization theory and structure, technology, communication, power and conflict. And anthropology, they have talked about cultures and environments. For example, individualistic and collectivist cultures, it is about values, which values are more instrumental in nature within any organization, which is very much implicit, which is more explicit. There are values, but how they perform it, and understand those differences between people in different countries and with different organizations. Okay. Next is developing a model. So, whenever we are talking about organizational behavior, there is a specific model that functions at every point of discussion. So, this is a basic OB model that defines the field of OB and proposes 3 variables: input, process and outcomes. Outcomes is the output, we can say. So, input is what we are putting in terms of efforts, knowledge, skills and abilities, in terms of workforce, in terms of technology. What is a process that works at every level, that is individual, group level and organizational level. That means it is about individual level, the individual traits, group level characteristics, and organizational level, it is about systematic functioning of the organization. And what are the outcomes? It is about individual level, again in terms of attitudes and stress, citizenship behaviors, task performance, withdrawal behavior. Group level, again these are the outcomes, to what extent the group is functioning, and organizational level, to what extent the organization is productive and it is surviving in complexity. So, input is about diversity, personality, values, group structure, roles, responsibilities, structure and culture. That means diversity with different color, caste, creed, race and cultures. Personality, the best fit between person and organization and person and job. It is about values. Group level, group structure, how the group has been structured as per the objective, what roles has been assigned to every member, that is the role incumbent who is holding a particular role, and the responsibilities of the team. Now, team members are there, overall responsibility will be performed by every member. And organizational level, it is structure and culture, the how it has been structured. It can be from 1 A, B, C, D, it can be that A is a leader and other members are communicating, it can be different kind of design that is being followed, and how it will process at every level. The inputs are there. So, diversity, personality and values as inputs can be processed at individual level in different forms, in form of emotions and moods, how an individual is controlling the emotions. Motivation, to what extent these factors, diversity, personality and values will motivate the employees. Decision making, the latitude, the freedom they have to take any decision, and perception, how they perceive their organization and their colleagues or the co-workers. At group level, about the communication, about the leadership, about power in politics and conflict and negotiation. Who will be the third party to resolve the conflict? What kind of communication barriers exist within the group itself, and who will bridge those barriers, who will bridge those communication gaps. For example, there can be a linguistic chaos because of internationalization, because of globalization. Different people come across the globe to function collectively. There can be a language problem which creates a crisis, and how that barrier can be overcome. It can be leadership, which leadership is more effective in a particular situation. It can be autocratic, it can be democratic, or it can be a free reign. At organizational level, it is human resource management and change practices. Again, change practices here means what changes are required to implement and make the organization more efficient and effective. HR is about people, human resource, as the term implies, it talks about people, it talks about the policies that are favorable to any particular employee or group of people. So, ultimately any OB model will function only this parameter, where input is there, process is there and outcomes are there. If input and process are not in sync, then definitely outcome is where survival of any organization becomes difficult. So, ultimate aim should be that to make the survival best, not fittest, that is best in terms of globalization, then input and process has to be in sync, so that each and every outcome at individual, group and organization level is conducive for an individual and organization survival. So, this is about introduction to organizational behavior, where we have talked about managers' roles, skills and functions. We have talked about the opportunities where OB comes into play in different kind of situations, in terms of workplace diversity, in terms of crisis, in terms of work conflict. Then contributing disciplines to OB, where OB can never exist when this understanding of psychological process is not clear, and developing an OB model, which is a basic model of OB to get maximum output in the end, that is the end product. So, that is all for this discussion. We will start with our second module in the next session. Thank you so much.